Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Jnanavarthini FDPPI's weekly knowledge session. This month, MIT notified further amendments to the Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code. These amendments lay out a framework for online gaming system and also deals with fact-checking related to information pertaining to government, and this has elicited mixed views specific to provisions of fact-checking. While the need to combat misinformation is widely acknowledged, there is a section who has raised concerns if this is a censorship move. Today, we discuss the impact of these new amendments, and we have three senior experts to lead the discussion. The discussion will be led by Advocate Dr. Mahendra Limaye, techno-legal expert in cybersecurity and cyber legal education. We have Mr. M.G. Kodandaram, retired IRS, advocate and consultant practicing in indirect tax litigations. And we have Naavi, sir, chairman of FDPPI, veteran cyber law specialist and information assurance consultant. Very warm welcome to everyone. This is an open discussion, though we have three experts to lead the discussion. Please join the discussions and express your views. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Limaye.
I think Naavi sir should open the floor because a lot of issues have been thrown out in previous discussions. And according to me, these intermediary guidelines are just extended or extension of previous guidelines, where it has been specified that what could be the roles and responsibilities of grievance officer or in-house officer of that particular organization. I don't find anything so troublesome to any company which could be in these particular guidelines. It just, according to me, old wine in new bottle, that's all. So no major changes, everything was existence since all reasonable security practices were defined under Information Technology Act. Grievance mechanism was always there, so a lot of mechanism was there, only they have been refreshed and people are making more hue and cry about these guidelines. That's my opening remark regarding these intermediary guidelines. Now, sir?
Yeah, of course. The reason why this has become a debatable issue is that the Editors Guild, by name it appears that it represents media in a big way. Then INS, that is the Indian News Society, which is a known representative of print publications in India. Both have expressed serious reservations on the intermediary guidelines. As usual, organizations like the Internet Freedom Foundation and several other what we call as the Soros group of media, like Quint or some other Wire and others, all of them have carried a sort of a press release which essentially says that this intermediary guidelines of April 6th is a serious adverse impact on the freedom of expression, and they directly go to the Constitution and say that the only remedy for this is that this has to be withdrawn. Now, there appears to be an opinion being created by this vested media interests that this particular notification is meant to censor the digital media. Okay. Now, whether it is true or not, we would like to hear people like Limaye and Ruchika and others to speak about. I have already spoken about it extensively, but I would like to hear the views of others also, because I actually recall that when there's long time back, this issue of Palgar girls who had liked a Facebook post was raised in the media and then in the court. The courts jumped to the conclusion that liking a Facebook post was equivalent to not only endorsing, it is like speaking out in a particular manner. And ultimately, it led to Section 66 capital A of Information Technology Act being withdrawn. The whole core of, process in that was based on Facebook and Twitter being considered as publishing a particular, you can say, the message, and they linked Section 66A to publishing on Facebook. Section 66A actually was not meant for publishing at all. It was only meant for messaging, like any adverse, message sent through email or SMS. The law was on SMS and email, but it was applied to the websites like Facebook and Twitter. And as a result, Supreme Court came to the conclusion that Section 66 capital A was bad, and they removed it. I have always been feeling that this was a gross mistake of the Supreme Court in not, looking at Facebook as a publication versus an SMS as a message. So similarly, this time also, if the courts have started looking at it, I think I would request Mr. Limaye to explain that case which has been filed by a stand-up comedian. He says that this will affect his expression very seriously. And then he has asked for the notification to be declared as unconstitutional. Now, because this kind of a case is something which the press would love to publish, I call this as a TRP case as far as the courts are concerned. Courts also sometimes go overboard to accept that kind of a case, and then may even try to come up with a decision which will get them maximum publicity on the media. In a way, media will be dictating the opinion of the court. This is a kind of apprehension I have got. Maybe lawyers would not like me to say something like this. We have got senior lawyers here. But my view is that the media is actually going to bring pressure on the courts to believe that this particular notification is really bad for freedom of expression. And like it happened in Section 66A, it may go through even to the Supreme Court, and an adverse decision may come. I would like, therefore, to have a proper explanation of this. I am not saying that we should not oppose something which notification which really curbs freedom of expression. My view is this is not going to have that kind of an impact, but we are trying to project an image like this, which I feel is, if we allow it to go through, it means that all the professionals like us are not able to keep the courts informed, or even the Solicitor General informed about what is correct. And there also, we have seen the Solicitor General and others putting up very weak arguments in the court, and they are not interested in some of these things. We would like that to be corrected. That is my personal view. And with this, I would like say others to come in. If you need any clarification on this, we will add. But for those of you who are not very familiar with Information Technology Act, there is a section called Section 79, which says that intermediaries shall not be liable for any content, third-party content, which is posted by them, provided they actually follow some due diligence. Now, what is due diligence? Government from time to time is suggesting as a best practice. One of the best practices is they say intermediary should put up a notice on their platform advising the users who actually are going to put this third-party content, advising the users do's and don'ts about what to post, what not to post. Don't post something which is a copyright infringement. Don't post something which is a trademark infringement. Don't post something which is an impersonation. Don't post something which is a defamation. These kinds of instructions are to be given by the platform owner to the user, which is what we call as a privacy policy in terms of service. In that, now they have suggested one particular section which says that please tell the users that in case any information has been called as incorrect or false by the government body which is going to be set up, they should be avoiding, or actually it says that the platform should take reasonable efforts to ensure that false or fake statements. What we mean by fake statement is something which is called fake by a reliable agency. In this case, reliable agency in respect of government information is one of the government agencies. And it says that the intermediary should tell the users that and take whatever efforts are required to ensure that fake messages don't find a place in the platform. Now, if they find a place, because sometimes we post something, we ourselves may not know it is true or something, we would have picked it up from some place and then put it up on the platform. Somebody else calls it out and say this information is wrong. Now, what we do is we will accept our mistake and we will try to take it out. But if we don't want to take it out, we may say that it is true. In my opinion, I would like it to stay. If I take such a decision, then I should be capable of facing whatever legal consequences which will arise out of it. At that time, the question of whether the platform owner will also be liable will come. And at that time, the platform owner has to say that I have carried out due diligence. I've told this gentleman not to post such fake these things. Despite that, he has posted it. So I have taken due diligence. Please take whatever action you want on the person who has posted. That is all this particular intermediary guidelines say. It does not mandate taking down of the content, though that is what most of these people are saying. So this is the general background of this. Now, if others want to counter this or add to this, you are open.
Sir, I will just add for benefit of all the users what due diligence by intermediary is defined in that particular media guidelines. That is, there are no new in what I mentioned. Intermediary shall prominently publish on its websites or mobile app rules and regulations and privacy policy. So everybody does this particular activity. Second is intermediary shall inform not to host that information which belongs to another person, obscene pornography, harmful to child, infringes any IPR, deceives or misleads addressee, impersonates another. So that is already inbuilt in intermediary guidelines. So there is no new thing in this particular. C is intermediary must inform at least once every year that in case of non-compliance with rules and regulations, it has right to terminate access. So that is what it has to be for the benefit of users, that if users are not compliant with the guidelines of the platform, they can be terminated. But no intermediary will terminate for their own benefit. But this is one of the provision. It is intermediary upon receiving actual knowledge in form of an order by court or competent jurisdiction. So here again, either a court has to direct intermediary or some competent authority like police inspector, means police deputed person, or some CRT guidelines, then only these intermediaries are mandated to remove that particular content. It means it is not on themselves to censor that particular information. If they are brought into knowledge, they can take this defense anytime. Then this is temporary or transient or intermediate storage of information automatically by an intermediary and computer resource within its control is as an intrinsic feature of that computer resource involving no exercise. So where it is online activity going on, which is beyond scope of intermediary, they will not be held liable. Then intermediary shall periodically, at least once a year, inform users, that is already there, then when upon receiving actual knowledge or voluntary basis of a grievance received, any information has been removed or access as to which has been disabled, intermediary shall, without vitiating the evidence in any manner, preserve such information. That is also there, that for law enforcement agencies investigation, information should be retained. 79 already says that information should be retained till law enforcement agency direct. So I don't find any of the terms which are available except new mechanism, that is grievance redressal mechanism of the intermediary. Resident has to be, means that officer has to be resident of India. So I don't find any substance where this sort of digital media platforms or other intermediaries are coming and strongly opposing. Only one good thing is that they have got somewhat knowledgeable and they have read these intermediary guidelines, and due to which more people will get enlightened that what intermediaries guidelines are. That is what I have explained regarding what intermediary guidelines in this April 2023 circular is all about.
I want some of the non-lawyers to actually speak out and let us know what is their view on this. Are they going by what this media is telling, which we are saying that press release of the Editors Guild itself is factually incorrect. In fact, if there is something to be removed, that is one of the things which qualifies as be removed under fact check. Okay, this is views of people like us, that is different. I would like people who are in the industry, technology people, including the two Ramesh, Subraidu, Adepu, what are your views on this? Are you going by the impression created by the media with big headlines, or do you think that what we are saying, which is perhaps looks more, correct? That is what I would like the non-lawyers to come up, because you are the persons who are going to interact with clients tomorrow, and they will be asking you whether intermediary guidelines will curb the freedom of expression or something like that. You also need to actually give out your perception. Then we will ask Mr. Kodandaram to add his views.
Generally, the industry, any control will be opposing first. Even in the organization or in the government or in the press, any control, whatever the purpose of the control, first it will be opposing, because it is going to curb their activity or more burden on the discharge of the duty as an organization or an individual. That's why I think the first Editor Guild response is, in that sense, they want to oppose it, because they always talk about the freedom of the press. What type of freedom of press, they don't define it. They want to have a full, everybody want to have a full freedom. So that is the purpose of this particular response from the guild. That is my view at this point of time. So controls should be understood proper manner. How those controls or the guidelines or the notification from government is going to benefit for the society in general or the community in general, not for the organization.
Okay, I take it that you say that any control will be opposed, therefore they look at this as an additional control and there is opposition for that. Yeah. Ramesh and Subraidu. Yeah.
One thing which actually, as Adepu sir said, the controls are always hurts, and media these days I think is looking for more of a promotion of their business and sensationalization. Whether it is right or wrong, it does not matter. Initially, or for some time, if you at least look at print media is slightly different. But you look at the TV or any other media where it comes from regularly, the way they project and then play it, it actually imbibes in your mind as if that's the truth. And it's almost half statement. It's not a full statement of complete these things, because they just want to sensationalize, get the eyeballs on the channel, etc. That's what I think is creating it. Now, the moment they are asked to control, they all will go away. So obvious choice for them is to kind of not to have a control and be free. And we all know, like in at least some of those areas, urban and non-suburban, the moment you go to anyone and saying that I'm a press, then obviously you have a walkthrough to their officers, getting into the place. The moment they claim anything out of this kind of a thing, it becomes sensation. So obviously that's the reason where these print and other media would obviously object for it. And we as in citizens have the right to know truth, but that's very difficult to see. It's like a needle in the haystack. We don't know what exactly is truth before it comes out. By the time it gets sensationalized and then people are gung-ho about it, I mean, we have seen those things happen by just kind of mere rumors. I mean, there are people who kind of go and commit suicides, etc. as well. So the control should be seen properly. Even media should come forward and say that what is actually acceptable for them, so that at least that is easily controllable. That's what my view.
Yeah.
Naavi sir, just to continue with what they said, I strongly believe these kind of restrictions need to come in a very, very stronger way. Today, what is happening is, you mentioned it, I don't want to repeat it strongly because I'll be coming under some kind of problem then. The judiciary, for example, right? It has got its own, like that now, no accountability in my perspective. Anybody can say anything about anybody, right? And then there is no kind of restrictions or any kind of control. So I strongly believe that quite disappointing to hear what Dr. Limaye started with, saying that old wine in the new bottle. So there is nothing new, new restrictions, so to say, had come in place, right? But I feel it needs to be there. And this also need to be looked into the kind of new technologies like AI coming into picture, which grabs, which pulls the data from the public domain and then keep it available for there any kind of an, oh God, if it is a wrong information, obviously you are going to have the wrong output per se. Morning I was reading the kind of blog by Sundar Pichai, beautiful statement. He says that the emergence of AI technology coming up in a very big way, he feels that the national securities are under threat, and hence there need to be a kind of agreement at the national level for the usage of AI. So I'm trying to correlate what is said to what we are discussing today. If that is true, which is true, as you and me know today in the call, right? What's happened in New York, etc. The new AIs which had brought in the bias, right? Some of them are not getting that kind of what you call privilege schemes or whatever the government schemes, right? The so-called that particular community. So we need to really think about it. And I strongly believe in, especially for a country like India, where they use one word called democracy, so that anybody can, bail them easily out, right? So I think that intermediary guidelines need to be very strongly come in, is what I would suggest. Yeah, I'm with you, sir, with that we need to have a stronger control.
Mr. Kodandaram, Mr. Ramesh and others use the word restriction. Now, in this fact check mechanism, PIB putting out a tweet or something like that for fact check, what is the restriction it brings, according to you?
Absolutely.
Does it bring any restriction at all?
Very good. That's a question. Does it bring any restriction, first of all? Yes, sir. Yeah.
Unmute yourself, Kodandaram.
Yeah. Sir, I have, after your this one, I have gone through in detail. I studied a lot of articles also on this subject world over. And I feel we are in the infancy stage of controlling the intermediaries. The intermediaries are controlled in a better way abroad. The so-called democratic people themselves, they are adhering to such kind of norms where they don't exist in India at all. We are in the infancy stage, as I told you. We have not ready to take it up. Here, commercial interests and political interests are taking over the knowledge, the government's this one, to make firm laws. Actually, law should grow along with the technology. Here, we are just reversing it. Here, government also sometimes appears to be not interested at all. So, and therefore, when I look for any new checks, there is nothing added extra. Limaye is very perfectly said. Ramesh Venkatraman also said. Ramesh ji also said. There is nothing new that has come. Now, if you give me 10 or 15 minutes, I will try to take you through the technological changes that have happened and certain writings from abroad, how they are emphatically concerned with these kind of changes that are happening, plus whether this, who is that fellow? The stand-up comedian is really trying to say that a comedian, or he's a replica of another stand-up comedian who is very famous in our political fields as on today. That is the situation. These guys, with no this one, want to make unnecessary judgments without having basic knowledge. If I am given 10 minutes, shall I go through, sir, now? Or shall I wait?
Yeah. But try to do it in 5 minutes if
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, as early as possible, because
Yeah.
I have brought some very interesting essay of a very fine author, which I would like to, it will give entire issue in a very fine, well. Before that, first of all, they are talking, it is a censor. Kindly note, if it is a censor, unless the certification is issued, it cannot be published. In these cases, it is not a censor. The very word use of word censor is totally wrong, misplaced, misguiding. This is only, we are examining, government is the right authority. Who else can be? And when government issues that this is a fake, it is the duty of the intermediary to bring it to the notice of all concerned. And it doesn't go beyond it. It doesn't stop that fellow. It says, it's a fake, let it be known. It's similar to, in a paper, some news comes, article about somebody, defaming him, and the reporter will ask the person also whether he has anything to add. His version also is going to be published. So the both perpetrator of crime as well as victims' versions will be available. The effect is same. But in internet, we are only going away with the wind of those fellows who are doing propaganda. But they are not ready to take information from the person who is making the law. That is the biggest nuisance that has created. I think there was some audio problem also. Now, is it okay, sir?
Okay.
And regarding applicability of 66A, there is nothing new has been added. This is only a guideline. They are already, whatever laws existing, which is in the act, they remain as it is. For that, there is no linkage to these guidelines. These guidelines can be used as an evidence to prosecute or take action or remove that information under the law before a court of law only. It is not that unilaterally government can act under these guidelines. These are all mere guidelines similar to any policy aspect. Coming back, today, nowadays, how ethics has become a much important part of digital society. Law cannot rule us, and we are not merely ruled by the laws, we are ruled by ethics. In fact, the readings which I have done mostly from last 6 months, they concentrate on cyber ethics only. They don't talk about anything. Recently, one more book I went through, The Ethics of Cyber Security. It's a collection of Springer's publication available online, 2020 publication. It has beautiful articles written on cyber security, how ethical practices should predominate, law cannot bring in, and how law should add value to that ethics. Some of the paras extracts of one of the article, freedom of political communication, propaganda, and the role of epistemic institutions in cyberspace, written by Sumius Miller. He clearly discusses every aspect and impact of these medias, so-called social medias, and how they are bringing down the civilization and freedom of individuals in the name of freedom of expression. Here, now it has become a time, as Mr. Ramesh and all were telling, anybody can do any other thing and get away. And this media is not responsible. Intermediary is not principal. I have given my house for rent. The fellow who comes for rent can do anything and spoil. The owner cannot do. That's what they are planning. It is not like that. Intermediary is responsible. Should be, his due diligence should be increased. I'll just read some paras. Social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter are used by billions, has enabled the moral right to communication to be exercised on a scale hitherto undreamt of. So they are of the opinion that moral base has to be increased because of more usage of social reform. The social society has totally changed now. As a consequence, led by unprecedented flows of information and opinion, globally as well as locally. However, these developments have gone hand in hand with an exponential increase in the spread of fake news, hate speech, propaganda. These are all realities in India. That's what we are facing today, even in the political arena. It is nowhere this one. On political communication, the advent of tech giants, he speaks on this, especially talks about Russia, how it is able to propagate, and so many countries are able to propagate and influence the American democracy, the election of the president, how it was subverted. And also it talks about Cambridge Analytica's use of data of millions of Facebook users, ethical issues arising by use of machine learning techniques, which are going to be hampering not only machine learning, we have gone still beyond. We have chat GPTs now, metaverse hanging there, Bard, so many new things are coming. But our law is bullock cart days. We have not moved. We have not looked into the new requirements of the citizen. And citizen is hit by stream of these changes, which has to be changed. Now, such manipulative political influence over users of social media, utilizing a combination of new technological tools such as machine learning, psychologically based manipulative marketing techniques, emerging ethical issues of the tension in cyberspace between freedom of communication on one hand and the need of restrict of certain forms of political propaganda. This is what need to be nipped in the beginning. This has already done in developed democratic nations already. We are very, very slow. And for this again, we are becoming food for the propagandist. So it should not be allowed. Some more last para is there. I will add it later. Let it not be boring. Let's move forward.
What you suggested is that this kind of risk has been identified even abroad. So what if that is considered as a risk, fake news risk is a risk, I think we are actually late in taking some action on this. Okay, now let us see if Ruchika, Subraidu, Anirban, any of them have got any views. I want actually say at the end of our discussion, we should say, be able to see there is a risk. Okay. Now the government wants to bring just a flagging of a news as fact checked, as correct, incorrect, or whatever is a gray area between correct and incorrect. That is, and also this particular guideline actually says that in respect of any information about the government body will actually do the fact check. Because if somebody talks something about the ministry, I and you do not know whether it is correct or incorrect. So fact check has to be done by the ministry only. So they have said that for information related to the government, this fact check unit to be set up by the government will perhaps put up a public notice that this such and such a news has appeared in such and such a media. However, this is not correct because of the following reasons, something like that. That's all. In case of private industry, private information, government may not immediately jump to any conclusion or come out with that. That is not the intention of this guideline. But there are already 20, 30 or more in the fact checking private parties or organizations who are already doing this kind of a fact check in private space. In fact, one of the things which I have pointed out is a news agent, perhaps it's a big media agency in Ireland, which has set up a beautiful system of calling out fake news right from 2016, which what they're trying to do is perhaps crowdsource information. Ultimately, all these things will start with a crowdsourcing of complaints or pointers, which some verification will be done. After prima facie verification, we will be putting it up as a suspected to be fake kind of information for some time, and then gather more of public opinion, and then call it out at the end of a brief period, whether this is really to be branded as fake or not. And by being branded as fake, these fact check agencies are not giving a mandatory notice to the intermediary to take down the information, not at all like that. They don't have the powers, but it is an information to the media that whatever they published was perhaps not well founded on actual things. Therefore, they can rethink on putting up a rejoinder. In the olden days, newspapers used to put a rejoinder, one small this thing, saying that the news published on such and such a day was not correct. That is what the due diligence which can be taken by the particular intermediary. This nothing more than that. This is how I read this particular intermediary guidelines. Now, is this a view which is shared by others? Is what I want to say. Ruchika, as a lawyer, what is your view? Anirban, have you studied this? You joined a little late, so that's why I was waiting for you to listen to some of the views before responding.
Sir, I haven't heard Dr. Limaye, but I do understand what he actually said by all of your speeches. Um, the one thing, one example I would like to put forward, which will make maybe those stands of all the speakers more solid. When anyone, my friend, my family members, the person who works at my home, take care of my daughter, or you know, some friend who run a pawn shop. I have quite a few friends. I have a big friend circle. When any of these middle income group or lower middle income group, they ask me a question that Anirban, you work with this security and stuff. They don't understand what my work area actually. But ask me work for security. There is so much news coming in, people losing money. Where should I keep my hard earning money? And money is very important to these people, the savings. They might not have big amount, but whatever they have, that's hard earned money. And the only thing I suggest to these people is all of them open a savings account in your local post office. Do not take a checkbook. Do not take a debit card. Just deposit money. And when you need money, just go to the post office, fill up the slip, give your passbook, and withdraw it from there. If you want to keep your hard-earned cash, just put it in that way. If they offer you check, don't accept it. If they offer you card, don't accept it. Just say, I would like to keep it in this way. This is a real life example. I do it. This shows that whatever the respective speakers said, it's actually correct. Whatever the evolving threats that are coming in, they're actually not addressed properly by the existing law, which are quite old. And when it comes to any fake news or any news, not about government or anything, so you just open Facebook, you can see the ads, and you will be amazed to see how many scams are running there. There are n number of scams running there, and the only reason is there is no accountability. there's no accountability by these intermediary or these giants who are earning in billions by publishing these ads or with the ad click and stuff. So I think, somewhere, somehow a law should come that will make these people accountable. I mean, if you are earning from something, you should ensure that no one is getting harmed to that.
No, I
It's a
I
responsibility.
understand what you are saying is that the trust in the internet is coming down day by day because of the increasing cyber crimes. And that is being further accentuated by the advertisements, which are scams and so on. So in fact, this media, with this, if they don't control fake news, then this trust deficit will also translate into any news media. It will be like anything. Today we say anything which comes on WhatsApp, don't believe. Similarly,
Yeah.
anything which comes on internet, don't believe. So whatever good things we envisaged internet will do to the society about 15, 20 years back when it came, today it appears that all that has been destroyed
Yes.
by maybe we did not say put enough regulations. That is one way of looking at it. Of course, whenever we may say regulation, immediately people will say let it be free. But laissez-faire approach will not work because we are not living in a jungle kind of a Raj. We are living in a society. The basic definition of a society is that a set of people agree to live under a mutually acceptable rules and regulations. That is what is going to become the law. So that is one. Now, what I am worried is that in this particular case, it is not even a strict regulation, but like crying wolf, people are talking as if a dictatorial regime is actually putting a dictatorial direction, that if anybody writes anything which is called as false, then the government will start censoring the information on the digital media. So on the one hand, most of you say that regulation is required because the risks are high. On the other hand, whatever little things which the government did in terms of this fact check kind of a thing, which only says, I will put up a flag and say this information which is coming on that, the government department says it is not correct. That's all it says. And that is the right of the government department to say. Now, that itself is being opposed by the so-called intellectuals. And these intellectuals include INS, the Editors Guild, Internet Freedom Foundation, probably, of course, the other politically motivated, say, lawyers who will also come into this sooner or later. And we are now seeing a case being put up according to Limaye. It is in the Delhi High Court. Now, so there is one set of people who are trying to cry wolf and see danger to the freedom of expression, and they are trying to say anybody can say anything on the internet, and eventually that kind of a freedom will destroy the trustworthiness of whatever little is left. Today, we don't believe newspapers also. The moment we see TV also, we say this TV is associated with this political party, that TV is associated with some other political party. We have already started filtering that. We either see a particular TV which we like, otherwise we don't see. So truth is actually at a discount. If at all, there was a time when in our younger days, we used to look to BBC for truthful news. In fact, when Indira Gandhi was assassinated, people like us turned to BBC to find out whether it is true or not. Today's BBC, of course, is totally different. I don't know. Tomorrow we'll have to go to the Doordarshan news to find out whether something is true or false. I feel that the lack of discipline, self-regulatory discipline of the media has created a trust deficit, and a little bit of this has to be brought back by at least saying that somebody that what you are saying is not correct. That's all. Okay, that is this intermediary guideline. Now, even that is being opposed is what makes us think that the world of cyber law is in danger of being hijacked by people who do not want any kind of discipline in the society. This is, of course, my view. I would like to see others who have not spoken, anybody who would like to give their views. I would like the team of DPPA to understand this correctly so that when they talk to other people, they actually spread out the right information. I think Subraidu has still not spoken.
Yeah. Actually, I was looking forward to listen to many people to form an opinion on this. So I thought this session will be a good forum where I can see, where I can hear all the seasoned people talk and perhaps form an opinion. But yes, definitely the initial feeling is that, see, media and everything has been, since I think since 2014, we've seen a lot of politicization of practically every aspect, right? So that stark polarization has crept in practically every aspect of society, whether that be, as somebody said, print media, television channels, or whatever it is. So it was all like expected lines, the kind of cry wolf approach, and that all those things. But I was in the meanwhile also trying to look at what happened in the US Supreme Court in the Gonzalez versus Google case, where I think the Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, that case was supposed to be decided. Has that been decided? What actually went on is something that I was trying to find out, where I think it was essentially about giving no liability to the intermediaries. So the Gonzalez versus Google US Supreme Court is supposed to be hearing that sometime in February 2023. I was just trying to figure out what actually happened. Looks like a decision has been made, and the Supreme Court actually, but the issues seem to be more or less the same, Naavi sir. There also are these online platforms, should they be held responsible for something that gets posted on them, or should they continue to enjoy the kind of immunity that they have continually been enjoying all along? I think the case was when a US citizen in Europe or France was murdered by some ISIS activist, and the ISIS was supposed to be inspired by some video that was posted on YouTube. Okay, and then the parents of the guy who was killed approached the US Supreme Court. I think initially at the early level, the case was dismissed, and eventually US Supreme Court is supposed to rule on whether this Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, which grants the kind of immunity to intermediaries, looks something similar to what Section 1679 of our Information Technology Act does. And they're just trying to compare what is there and what is, of course, one may say the countries are different, the cases are different and all, but just to see what's going on in the rest of the world on the same subject. Does anybody know what eventually came out in that judgment? Looks like the US Supreme Court has given a ruling on that. Anirban sir, your Gonzalez versus Google, that is in the US Supreme Court, about because I think the internet giants definitely seem to be looking for an equivalent of Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act in the US, in whichever countries they operate, and because there's some similar provision in other countries, and Section 79 also looks like the same. But of course, they're not identical. We can get a good idea of what's going on and what the view is prevailing in other parts of the world. I think there is a link I did.
Yeah, say every privilege provided by law comes with a certain duty. In fact, this is what has also been used in the DPDPB, if you know, rights along with the duties to the data principle. Same way, media also has got the duties. What this guidelines says is very, very simple. If you write anything about me, the government, I am going to say it is not correct. I am going to publish it. Now, it is for you to do whatever you want. If you don't want to remove it, it is okay. In fact, 79, section 79 is meant not to make the intermediary liable, but if you know something is wrong and if a court has given an order, you have to remove it. Where the court has not given an order, you use your discretion. But if you keep the information, you run the risk of being held liable on a later day if somebody takes any legal action. But a decision on whether an intermediary is liable or not, even in such case where they have not followed due diligence, lies with the judiciary, not with the government. The government cannot punish it. So there is an oversight of the judiciary, even in case an intermediary has not followed the due diligence, and therefore a time comes when they stand trial for being held liable. That is again a judicial process. So therefore there is nothing to object to this particular guidelines, but still people are calling out this as an obnoxious kind of a regulation. So that is what I want others also to say something about it. Ruchika, you have any
So,
views?
sir, of late, I've been holding this view that every time the government puts any kind of restriction or asks for any kind of information or collects any data from the citizens, there's a lot of hue and cry. But the same citizens are very willingly giving it to commercial corporations or these big giant companies who are using it for commercial gains. So I think it's just the perception which is floating in the minds that if the government is collecting, it must be to curb my rights, or it must be to put some kind of sanction on me, or it will disadvantage me in some manner. Whereas when I am sharing it with these social media companies, then it is my wish. I'm doing it as per my wish. It reminds me of what I tell my children, that children by nature are rebellious. So if I will tell them to do something, they will definitely not do it. So, it seems like that is what is happening with the citizens of India. Because this is coming from the government, we will not do it.
In fact, in the information security area, companies are expected to take down action whenever phishing is observed. Am I correct? If you are a banker or somebody, if you come across a site which is likely to be used for phishing, we expect as a part of information security good practice effort to take down. How do they take down? RSA or somebody runs actually services of that nature. They send notices to the ICON registrars and just tell them that this is a phishing site, it has to be taken down. And most of the time, phishing sites are taken down within 2 hours. That's the average time within which phishing sites are taken down. Now, if you say freedom of speech, tomorrow the phishing site also may say they also have freedom of speech. Now, here we are talking of a process where the government calls out a website as if wrong. If you say phishing is also falsehood, same thing is being said here also. It is a message phishing kind of a website. They're calling it out. They are not taking it down. Taking down happens only after a court trial. So information security already has something similar to this. International practices are also there. And what is being done in India is perhaps not adequate enough to prevent fake news. And if we don't try to do that, it will actually hurt the internet as a whole, because people will start disbelieving anything which is there. Even today, Wikipedia, in some of these political and other things, we don't believe Wikipedia because we feel Wikipedia has already been taken over by certain vested interests. Twitter had been taken over by vested interests. So we are destroying a system which has got a lot of benefits to the society. And that is something which we need to do, contribute in our own way, that it will not happen. So one of the suggestions which I think Mr. Limaye and others have been suggesting is, if there are so many private sector companies, including that Zubair, who has got alt news or something, they call themselves fact-checking companies. and they put out a Twitter, this thing, a fake rubber stamp or something like that. Should not responsible organizations like FDPPI also take up a responsibility that if we come to know, it is not that every fake news can be called out. There will be hundreds and millions of fake news. Everything cannot be called out. For example, something comes about Data Protection Act. Okay, maybe our expertise actually provides us an opportunity to say, no, what this article says is not correct. In fact, this is something which I have been doing in Naavi.org as far as cyber law is concerned for a long time. So at least in certain specific areas where our expertise is capable of saying something is not correct, should we call out that as a news item which has appeared, which does not appear to be correct. Okay, so we can also become a fact check unit without taking the responsibility that we will be able to identify millions of say news items. We will not do it. We will not have the capability of doing it, but we can be a hub to which the people around us can send information. Then we can perhaps look at it, and if it is coming within our expertise, we can perhaps give our views. If it doesn't come under our expertise, we can only say reported by a certain section of people, subject to verification or something like that. But we can act as a centralized agency to have such fact checks called out. Is a suggestion. Maybe some of you can give your views on that, whether it is relevant or not. This is something which I would have done as Naavi.org, but what perhaps we are discussing is whether an organization like FDPPI should get into that kind of an activity. Yeah.
I think we are at the best position to take up these activities on ourselves, because the kind of expertise we have, the reach we have, at least we can start, because whatever entire activities FDPI is doing is for betterment of society. So this could be taken with limited domain, like going through some tech news, or only related to cyber crimes, new type of scams coming on. Only a domain specific activity to start with, we can take up on our own. And as discussed previously also, I am right now all the time prepared to support this particular activity and join the hands with all the like-minded people to take up this particular activity and carry out further. Because what is happening, a lot of things are going on. Say cryptocurrency news, a lot of fake sites are coming, fake crypto advisors are there, people are losing millions of money. And when it comes as a legal angle, we don't find any support. So at least we can start this sort of awareness or fact check mechanism on the banner of FDPPI and contribute as little as we can. So this small contribution will be always growing after coming days, and we will find our place in this particular cyberspace. So that was my suggestion, that we should take up this fact check mechanism with some limited corners, that we will not move beyond these boundaries. We will not cross to political arena or some other arena, and we will stick up ourselves to data protection and say cyber related crimes likewise activity. So if we can start first designing the frame, then we can identify the contributors, and hardly say half an hour of every individual's contribution will be more than enough for this particular cause. So I am always in for this particular activity, and I expect FDPPI should start this activity with immediate effect. That is my suggestion.
So the group of presidents will take this project for further discussion. Any final words from others?
Sir, one quick point. What you said is making sense, right? That we become a kind of organization. But what is the authenticity of the information against which we can really check and then say this is a fake news?
That is what you, as a group of presidents, try to decide what is the norm for that. If it is, for example, a factual thing, for example, somebody says ABC technology is doing this, something like that, then maybe you may have a binary answer whether it is correct or wrong. But when it comes to some legal these things, there could be the opinions still. So you have to actually, state your views in such a manner that the correct information is given, like what we are doing today. Say what the INS or Editors Guild has said, we are saying that it is not a correct view. Okay, so that is a fact check flagging of an example. We can try to do something of that nature. We are not going to say something about somebody is killed somewhere, some murder news is there. We will not do a fact check on that because that is not our area of expertise. So within our area of expertise, whatever we can contribute to the improvement of the credibility of internet, we can try to do is a thought which can be considered. I'm not talking of getting into the political this thing of some political leader saying something, whether it is true or not. That is what government may do, or somebody who is affected will do a defamation case. We are talking of something which is in the professional area. In the professional area, if there is any misunderstanding and miscommunication being spread, for example, somebody may say, as per the new income tax rules, XYZ, the new tax has been imposed. It may or may not be correct. So one of our tax experts can maybe correcting that and say that, no, according to the latest this thing, this is not the impact of whatever change has been made. It doesn't introduce any new tax or something like that. So if it comes within the domain of our expertise in, say, data protection, perhaps at least that we can try to call out, then we will be providing a service. So when it comes to anything related to data protection, one voice which everybody should seek answer from should be FDPPI. Could be a thought. Okay. Think about it. We'll discuss later on. And any final words from others before we wind up?
Definitely, it's a step worth taking. Yeah.
It is like a sectoral specialization in verification of facts kind of a thing. Just an indication. Okay, just a thought. Okay. Yeah. It can be a like that. It may encourage other professional organizations in their respective areas to come up. So if there is an environment science organization, something, if somebody may say this particular thing is causing damage to environment, maybe the scientist will be able to say, no, that is not correct. Okay, so that is what perhaps that specialized organization can do is, you just think over this, let us see.
Yeah, we can think over and say if everybody consents, we can go ahead with this particular activity.
Yeah.
That's my idea.
Right.
I think
Okay.
we
Yeah,
can have a
thanks,
blog so that whoever wants can put it and somebody can verify those blogs and see that it is published. That will give some life. Similar to our Naavi's writings every day, we can have in FTPPI blogs so that any issue anybody can write and it will be pruned by somebody else and then hosted. Like that, if you do, we can create some more interest, not only about the disinformation that being spread. Anything pertaining to internet and related things, whatever they want, could be examined by another person and then placed. Like that, some system where hosting is possible. Technologically, we should look into it, and that kind of thing could be done. Creation of a blog, FDPPI blog, where it can be a part of it could be used like this.
So let us look at the modalities. Okay. So, Manju?
Yeah, I will take over. Okay. So any more views, any points, etc.? Okay. Yeah, she left. So thank you very
last
much.
Word I would like to tell.
Yes, sir.
We should strengthen our law.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, our society is going to be harmed in all ways. To give a simple example, the Nandini episode with
Yes.
Amul, there is no legal restriction for selling anything anywhere. It's simply singled out. In spite of government of Karnataka saying that we are not going to merge, it's still propaganda is there. And anybody can sell anything in India. That's the purpose of free trade. When the people say that they want to have India Jodo, is it not India Todo they are practically doing?
Yeah.
That kind of analytical things should come in the blog so that you say it is not here what you are going to do with these funny things. Trade is to reduce and increase competitive, thereby citizen is benefited. In the name of citizen being helped, you are doing this, and it is totally illegal, illogical, and it will not serve any purpose because cost of Nandini is much cheaper than Amul. And if I start buying only Nandini, Amul may not be able to. The people who like Amul, let them also buy Amul. So there, citizens should be given the freedom to select. And in India, bringing of one market is to increase this kind of competition, and market-driven pricing is possible. And everybody is helped. In fact, Karnataka may lose more now by this kind of propaganda because if Karnataka is stopped in Kerala and other states. So these kind of things could be of a very interesting talk in those blogs so that it will help how this propagandist is going to be curbed by these kind of guidelines, all that we can add.
Okay.
Similar
Yeah, Ramesh.
to it could be thought out by our
Right.
presidents, as you are telling, and I hope it will become a very live atmosphere for us to interact every day on FDPP.
Sure, sure. Great, great. Absolutely, sir. Thank you very much, each one of you. Excellent participation and a nice discussion. I think need of the hour, and really appreciate each one of you to contribute and participate very actively. Let's meet next week on a different topic. Thanks once again. Have a nice evening.